Hi guys, my name is Sean. I'm a houseplant enthusiast from Jakarta, Indonesia, and here to show you how to care for and propagate this massive philodendron joepii. I would say massive might be a bit of an overreach. I've seen these guys grow really big. This joepii was grown on my green wall for a while and it's been exfoliating. As you can see, the stem, its petiole has gotten pretty long. But before I show you the care of this plant, I'm gonna give you a quick background. So this plant looks really interesting. It's got really interesting physical features, and they were actually very rare for a while, but then they became quite common when they went into tissue culture. Anyone who wanted one can possibly get it now. I don't really remember exactly, but I bought this as a green plant, but this has been showing some variegation on some of the leaves, so I don't know what's going on. A possibility could be that a lot of breeders have been taking the variegated version in a tissue culture in hopes to get the variegated ones. In the process, there were a lot of the green ones that appeared and they just were clearing them out, so they were like all over the market, and this is why some of us are enjoying some of this tissue cultured variety at a very good price, but also at a high probability of variegation. So this plant was quote-unquote rare during the COVID period, and a lot of you guys who are now just joining into the plant hobby, these plants are absolutely ready to be souped up at a really good price. And I understand that a lot of new and interesting rare plants have come into the market, especially like the variegated, the tricolor. Watch my tour video in Bangkok International Exotic Plants to see some of the new rare trending plants. But a lot of these plants that were rare at some point, they are still really beautiful. They're spectacular, and I really recommend for you to get your hands on some of them before you actually try on the more like variegated, the more complicated hybrids that's now flooding the markets. All right, the care for this is extremely simple. This is just like any other philodendrons. Bright indirect light, and you want to give it something to climb on because it is a climber. If you don't give it something to climb on, it'll flop over. It will look really horrible. And for potting media, I give it my airite chunky potting media. This could be, you know, charcoal, cocoa chips, bark, and I do supplement a bit of perlite and also sometimes a bit of pumice when I have it on hand. But you could really grow this in anything. The reason why you want to give it a more chunky aroid potting mix is because you want to fool its roots to think that it's climbing a tree. This is when they can actually invest in putting out energy to pull out these like mature form leaves. Putting them on a moss pole, letting them climb a wall is also one way for you to encourage these spectacular leaves. You fertilize the same way you do with other houseplants. They're not particularly pest prone, but with all, I shouldn't say all, but with most philodendrons, they might attract ants, but if you follow the petiole, you see these like red dots on the petiole. These are extrafloral nectaries. They sometimes appear on the leaf. They also sometimes appear on the main stem here. These are to attract the ants. The extrafloral nectaries excrete sugar that the ants really love. So the ants are essentially eating straight from the sugar. However, on plants like Hoyas, when you see ants around them, it's most likely that the ants are harboring mealybugs. They have like a symbiotic relationship. So the mealybugs are eating your plants and the ants are eating their poop, which is sugar to them. But in this case, when there's extrafloral nectaries, it's okay to have ants. In fact, the ants are there to protect your plant from other pests because the ants have direct access to the sugars. So this is one of the cool features of philodendrons that we sometimes forget. They're not particularly known to be prone to infections like bacterial or fungal, although you can spray them now and then with neem oil or with the fungicide just to, you know, be on top of your game. And I'm gonna start chopping this plant up because I'm talking too much. First thing first, we're gonna take this out of the pot. This is my favorite part of my video, to show you some naked roots. Oh, this is so beautiful. I think from here we can deduce that some of the roots are in fact a little bit mushy, not a lot, but I see some rotten roots here. So this plant might have been a little bit overwatered. We do hose it down every day on the top of the green wall. And then if you can see, I did not give it an aroid chunky potting media. I don't know what went through my head at the time, but this media that is in now, it's quite, it retains moisture quite well, quite a lot. So we're gonna fix that. Get myself like a jug of water, not to drink, this is for the plant. For the top cutting, I usually reserve them in water. So I just want to make sure, and this section that I'm cutting, we lost some leaves here. This is like a bare node. I don't know what happened to the leaf. The growing eye right here. So I'm going to cut a little bit below that. Like so. I am slightly worried because like this top root here will actually root really well, but then this one here As you can see, it's like a little bit problematic. If you put this in water, this might actually rot. So I might actually cut it down to here. You see, this is like where the healthy root starts and it ends around here. Ugh. I don't know what water that was, but it got into my eye. Ugh. Okay. So this, usually top cutting, I put it in water just because I feel like they have the less root system, they have the most leaves, and they need water to sprout this new upcoming shoot. So this is a cutting that I think is the most water intensive out of all the other cuttings. Now I might fill the water all the way until here because this is where this new node is gonna sprout roots soon. So I want this to be submerged in water so that that root can form. And I can put absolutely another cutting. You can take 2 nodes at a time. You absolutely can. Let me see if this is easier with this. Oh my God, okay. Not easier. Let me cut it slowly. Okay. So this is 1 cutting exactly. Now this is not a good cut because you can see I was like trying to saw the plant off and it actually bruised it quite a lot. It should have been like a clean cut, but that's okay. So this is what 1 cutting look like. There's going to be 1 leaf with hopefully the leaf intact. And then on the main stem, you will see that there's a bit of root. Hopefully this is healthy. Let me check it all the way to the, yeah, this is a healthy root. And then the most important part is this growing eye here. It needs to have this growing eye for it to successfully put out a new vine. But this is a pretty dangerous cut. It's a pretty close cut, although I've seen a lot of people do this. So essentially this leaf is still photosynthesizing, so it needs water, it needs sunlight. And the roots will develop more roots here, but it's also taking in some water for the leaves, but also it's also trying to supplement energy for this new node to grow out. You can grow this without the leaf. You can do a bare node propagation because there is some energy stored in this stem, and there's also this stem can photosynthesize as well. So you would want to put it somewhere bright if you don't have the leaf. Okay, I do want to put this in water as well. I'm going to put 3 into this jar. You want to be careful when you cut not to cut into the growing eye of the lower node. Here's the trick. When the plants are grown happily, when you give it good light, the internodes are actually very short. But if you grow it in like less than ideal light conditions, the node can actually elongate quite a bit, which makes propagation a bit easier. But of course, you should probably grow your plants in the best possible light. This one has dried off roots, so I'm gonna cut this root off. And then I'm gonna start chopping away. This is very close. You know what, for this, I might take 2 nodes. I might take 2. All right, so this is what 2 nodes look like. It's got 2 sets of aerial roots, 2 sets of leaves, and 2 sets of growing eye. All right, wish me luck on this one. These are getting very close. The internodes are super close. I'm very worried about these. Super challenging. Okay. Need to cut above this growing eye. Okay, let me show you this cutting up close. So this is basically a 2-node cutting with 2 healthy leaves intact, and of course 2 healthy roots. Yeah, and you have 1 growing eye here. And another one is over here. This one right here. This is very, very inactive growing eye. And in this one cutting, I actually do want to grow this in moss because we want to show you different ways to propagate a plant. You can propagate in different mediums. Some of them may fail, I don't know. It depends on how I take care of it. But I'm gonna show you how. It also depends on your comfort level, like how comfortable are you or how experienced are you with certain mediums. Some people have a lot of failure in water propagation, whereas I have nearly 100% success in water propagation. I have a video on how to maximize your success rate with water propagation. Check that out. Type in water propagation only plants in the YouTube search bar. You should see it. And this one has a long root. This one is dead. Let me cut it. Cut it. cut it back to, yeah, where it's fresh. And then I kind of dip it into charcoal. And then kind of wiggle it in. So I twirl it in here. I don't know if it makes sense to twirl like this. It just came natural to me. No one taught me. Let me know in the comment section below if this twirling method works well for you as well. Now actually I changed my mind with this one. Because of the way things are in there, I might actually use my air-ride potting mix. Now this one is absent of cocoa chips. I did not put cocoa chips in here because cocoa chips do retain a bit of water, so we sometimes mix it in manually. But in some cases like this, we don't really need a ton of like water retention. And also this adds sort of like as a weight. So this way, I can get the leaves to stand up better. We're gonna put it on a shelf and I'm gonna tie this on the shelf so it doesn't like fall over. But this can be watered every day. We do water our plants every single day. So this plant at this point does not need a ton of water. And also I'm gonna put it in my greenhouse here. This is sometimes I seal it in for humidity, so it's got slightly higher humidity. If you've got a prop box, this will do really well as well. But high humidity will also, one, prevent water loss from the leaves. Number two, it will promote root growth. So they really want that high humidity. But of course, if we don't have it, the living room condition is fine. I'm gonna grow this in the water propagation in the living room. So yeah, and in some cases, if you don't water your plants every day, like you could also top dress this with a bit of moss, just so that the moss can kind of seal in the humidity within the potting media a bit more. But for me, I am an avid overwaterer, so that's why I don't add moss at this point. I'm just gonna water this every day. Just keep in mind, the media needs to be lightly moist throughout. You don't let it dry out completely, but you don't want it to be sopping wet. So this is ready for, I think, just soil propagation. So in fact, in this video, we might not have a moss propagation of it. You know, you can absolutely grow them in moss. And some people grow them in full perlite as well. It's a good way to root the plants, but this one has such vibrant root system, I think. But sterilize this, again, this is activated charcoal. Sterilize the wound. But this is a 2-note cutting, and I like these clear pots. Oh, hang on. Before I wiggle this in, I've got a trick. So I'm wetting these roots because they kind of become more pliable when they're wet. So they are not as likely to break when I twirl it into this pot. This is quite a tight twirl actually because the pot is quite tight. If you hear a cat meowing in the background, that's a stray cat that comes over every day. She just wants to hang out, and I try to give her food and she wouldn't want to eat anything. And she just wants to be around us, me and the gardener. She wants to be pet. She brushes up against our legs. Of course, these days I take out the background noise with AI. So you may not hear her, but she's meowing away. This shirt is so tight, I'm like pulling it down constantly. I would say this looks pretty good. This is a very, very good. I'm now tempted to just use some moss. Actually, this would do well with moss as well. I know I'm very, very indecisive. Now, technically speaking, you're supposed to like take the moss and soak it in water and then squeeze out the water and then fluff it out. But I just use moss right out of the bag. Now with the moss, do not pack it in. See? You just gently lay it. All of these, by the way, right now they don't need any fertilizing, but when you start seeing secondary roots appear, like new fresh roots, you can probably start fertilizing it a bit. If you see some space inside, that's okay. Some air is actually good for them. So you want to make sure that the translucent pot is like lightly, what do you call this, like light water droplets on it, but then you don't want it to be compacted and wet. The moss can actually retain way too much water, and you don't want that. That's one way to really rot and kill your plant very quickly, your cuttings. I killed a ton of plants, by the way, to get to where I am today. Also, every environment is different. Maybe you live in a place with lower humidity, where you cannot let it, you need to like keep it more moist than I do. it's a possibility. Start with like cheap plants, figure out your conditions and how to propagate them before you take on the more expensive plants. But propagation truly is rewarding, it's fun, it's exciting. And I love making these videos for you guys. Thank you for sticking around. Oh no, oh my God, I cut this beautiful leaf off by accident, sorry. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this alone. This is like the mother plant. It's still got 2 leaves, so it's going to photosynthesize. It's got a few nodes, it's got a ton of roots. So my hope is that this, and I'm putting it back in the same pot, even though it's very root bound, because if I put it into a big pot, it might get overwatered, it might retain too much water, where in fact this pot right now, it cannot take water because we lost all these leaves, the water has nowhere to go, so it will rot the plant if you're not careful enough. Okay, so when you have like a mother plant like this, I'm just top dressing this with a bit of like aerite potting mix just because there's so much exposed roots now. I almost don't want to water this, like literally water it you gotta be very careful for this one. It needs only like maybe 10% of the water it was receiving before. So there, and there were some rotten roots in there. I'm not gonna sweat it at this time. Just back off with watering. A lot of them will die off on its own. There you go. I don't spoil my plants, by the way. I do not spoil my plants. In nature, I mean, they live in very brutal environments. You know, you don't necessarily have someone remove all the dead roots from the plants. I am all set. So I will show you guys the update very shortly. So we've got a mother plant. We've got 3 of these. And we've got 3 cuttings in water, so we've got 7 potential plants. All right. Hey you guys, welcome to a 5 weeks update. This is everybody. So let me quickly show you, starting with this one, I guess. This is really, really pretty. I quite liked it sitting in my living room for 5 weeks. It looks like a beautiful decor with this like tall jar. And look at all these roots. I guess today we are going to pot them up. There's even a growth point there happening. So the way that you know it's ready to be moved to soil is when it's put out like a main root and then a secondary one, like this one here. It's put out like 1 main root and a secondary. I mean, the theory goes that the first root that comes out usually is one that is for gripping, for it to latch onto something, and the secondary roots are the ones that are gonna absorb nutrients. The longer you wait, the harder it will become to acclimatize it to a potting media. But if you do it too soon, also it's not so good for the plant. So it's about finding the right balance. There's no really formula. Because I'm free today, I decided to just work on this. If I waited another 2 weeks, it would absolutely be okay. Now this one here, the one with 2 leaves, the leaves are still hanging on, but I'm trying to dig in to see if any growth point has happened. It hasn't. Oh yeah, I see it. I see it. Do you see that little point there? It's trying to put out something. It's doing well. I make sure that there's always a little bit of humidity in here, but it's never wet. The media is very, very chunky. And you can see a bit of roots down below here. So this is going to do quite well. I might also add that now is a good time to add slow release fertilizer now that it's rooted. This is also one that has 2 leaves. I see some healthy roots here, some healthy roots here as well. I mean, when you see white color, that's what you want. You don't want any kind of brown mush. Although I do see here, there's a bit of a browning action. Let me see if this is in fact roots or not. Yeah, this is fine. I'm touching it. It feels very hard. So this is fine, but let me check to see if it's put out anything for us. I mean, technically speaking, we should have leave it alone. But yeah, this is like, there's a bit of growing eye over here. It is a bit of a late bloomer, this one, but we're gonna give it some time. And then this one here, these are all very rowdy because the leaves are like slapping against each other. This one's doing well. Let's put out like a new growth point here. And the roots seem to be doing fantastic. This one is in a different potting media. It's in a moss situation. So the moss is like on top, there's a bit of air inside, like empty space, which is fine because that means that it's like sealed in humidity in there that they really love. And when you have like humidity like that, the roots become quite fuzzy. It's quite beautiful to see. And then I guess we're all worried, And then I guess we're all worried about the mother plant because we took so much off of it. It's put out a vine. It's put out one new leaf and another one coming along the way. I was hoping for another one. There might be this little nub here might sprout if it has enough energy. It might sprout, or if I had keiki paste, I can just rub the keiki paste on it and it might activate that node, encourage it to grow. Alright, welcome to another 7 weeks of update, and I want to quickly show you that begonia over there. This is from our video where we propagated a bunch of these, and this is a common plant, but just a reminder that they do bloom beautifully and these blooms really capture our attention. But anyways, I digress. So everything kind of exploded in growth. It is pretty crazy. So now we have 4 of these. Ooh, we have 4 of these. Let me see, that's not gonna stand on its own. It's not. Yeah, so I'm just gonna show you some random ones. This one is growing up with like a beautiful baby leaf over here. And by the way, I'm filming now with my iPhone. Previously, the clips were filmed with my Sony DSLR. Let me know which one you like better. I thought that the clarity is much better on the Sony, but this is a lot easier to edit, a lot easier to work with. And I find that this is a little bit maybe more accurate representation of reality. Like the light level isn't that high now and everything, and the DSLR tends to like, I don't know, makes everything look too unreal. But I like both. But again, I'm just filming now on this phone because it's just what I have on hand. Let me know if you notice a difference and let me know which one you prefer. Now the mother plant here, I want to make a quick leaf count. This is where I made the cut, and it's got 1, 2, 3, 4. It's got 4 leaves with the 5th one, this one, that is coming along the way. Of course, the leaf size isn't as massive as it were before, but it will size up quite quickly. I'm gonna give one to my mom, and I might sell like the 3 of them, only because I'm running out of space. So I've been doing a bit of a purge here, and I don't ship internationally, by the way, so you can only buy them if you live in Indonesia. So pay attention to my Instagram story. I'm gonna be purging a few plants on there. This one is also quite beautiful, and yeah, and this one, the growth point here looks pretty fat, so I have a feeling the leaf is gonna be quite big on this one. And this one might take a little bit longer. I have a feeling this is one that we propagated in water because there's not too many roots on here, so we might have transitioned it here. Usually when you transition plants from water propagation, it takes quite a bit of time before they put out a new leaf because the roots needs a bit of time to adhere to the media. So yeah, I guess with that, I'm gonna bid you guys farewell. Ooh, and after I finished wrapping up with the episode, I found another one. I guess the water propagation cutting yielded 2 of these. So this is the one that's just tucked away in the corner, hiding in plain sight. And as you can see, this one's putting out a growth point as well. And by the way, off topic, there's this Hoya here that's always blooming. I think this is the latifolia or macrophylla. The parent plant is huge, it's up there. When I bought it, it was already big and I propagated it, but it's always blooming. And then in this room, it would perfume it really beautifully at night. So I enjoy this several nights a month. This is amazing. I definitely recommend this Hoya. That is always, look at the peduncles on these. This is very generous with the blooms. Thank you so much for watching me hack up my plants, propagate them, multiply them, and not knowing what to do next with them. Because I truly am confused by all these number of plants. But these kind of processes really bring me a lot of joy. And rather than having one giant plant, I always want to just cut it back. And like something like this is more manageable in the space that I have. And now I might be able to sell a few of these and use the money to buy something else, buy more new plants. So that is just my approach of growing plants. So there's more than one way to skin a cat, I guess. Stay subscribed, send this video a like, comment down below. It'll really help the video out a lot. And no pressure whatsoever, but if you want to help the channel out financially, my Patreon is going to be somewhere on the screen. The link is going to be above that list. Or you can join as a YouTube member, and sometimes you get early access to some of the episodes. Although honestly, these days I've been so like last minute that I'm uploading episodes as I go. So there's not a ton of like early episodes to watch anyways. You might watch it a day or 2 early ahead of everyone else. But these kinds of financial help really do come a long way. You guys are really throwing me a lifeline. But just by you watching these videos and clicking on them, liking them and all that really helps me out a lot. All right, with that, I'm gonna bid you farewell for real this time. Take care everyone, and I will see you in the next one.